I look short again. There we go. Here we go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Buckeye Roast. Good to have you. Shout out to my guy Javon. He was first in the chat. So OH, we get OH in the chat or IO in the response. Ron, how you doing?
We're doing good, doing good, doing good. Big day on the Buckeye Roast. We don't normally have guests, so it's a special occasion. It's guest week, and we're about to jump right into it.
I feel honored. So we got our guy Chimdi Chekwa in here. Let's go ahead and bring him up.
How
Hey, how
y'all
you
doing,
doing, man?
man? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Can y'all hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I had to turn my mic down a little bit. I got some lullabies playing in the background. You know.
Fatherly duties in the morning. We appreciate
Yeah.
you making time for us to join the show today.
Oh yeah, for sure. Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate it.
Abs- absolutely, absolutely. Uh, when we first started this show, we had to give a background on all of us on how we became Buckeyes. I'm from Pittsburgh. Q is from Virginia, so we have interesting paths to becoming Buckeyes. A guy from Florida like yourself, how did you end up becoming a Buckeye?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really simple. Ohio State was the
NIL.
best school that offered me. No, but honestly, I got recruited. I think I got recruited late in the process. I was in Florida. Obviously, I was looking at a lot of the schools in the South, and we had a coach. Daryl Hazel was a receiver coach. He was looking at one of our receivers out of Eastridge High School down in Claremont, Florida, and he came out to watch the receiver, and he was like, "Man, there's this corner out here that's just killing everybody." So, called Trestle on the phone. I wasn't on their list, right? And Tress was like, if you like him, I like him. So that kind of started that process. And then when I took my visits, I was back then. It sounds kind of crazy, but Maryland was a decent team, right? I went to Maryland. I wanted to live in a city or close to a city. So after leaving Maryland, they flew me straight to Ohio State, and the contrast was just so big, right? So I was like, man, I told my dad, I'm like, I'm gonna go to here. I'm not going. I don't need to go into to any more visits. So, yeah, that was it.
You brought up Tress's name. Tress is my guy, one of my favorite coaches. Obviously, I grew up about 20 minutes away from TP. So when Tress came to Jeanette, when he would come to Pittsburgh, it was a
Yeah.
big deal. The Senators here, I could remember the gymnasiums packed. So what was it like playing for Tress and going through that recruitment with that process? You hear so many great things about him. What was your experience like with Tress?
Yeah, I mean the recruitment process was cool because, like I said, at that time, Ohio State wasn't necessarily on my radar. Urban Meyer was at the University of Florida. I lived maybe about an hour, 15 minutes away from UF, so I would go there a lot, watching the games during the season, etc. But I wasn't a big fan of the staff at the time. So when Trestle came in, and I talked about the conversation he had with Coach Hazel, and then about maybe like the next week he flew down. It was kind of surreal because they was never on my radar, and I had only seen Trestle on TV with a sweater vest, and the sweater vest shows up in the gym, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's Trestle. Why is he here? He's here for Chimdi." It was kind of cool, and his temperament, kind of his personality, kind of fit my personality. So it was just a good fit for me.
Yeah, everybody talks about Trestle as the ultimate players coach. I remember we did a space with Troy Smith, and he had like raving things to say about Tress. And I've heard everything from like he's ultimate players guy to mob ties to everything in between. That's I just want to ask, like meeting Tress, like what really came off? Is it that vibe that you just get? Like he just runs the room without having to say too much?
Yeah, I think for me, Trestle is a unique person in that he remembers a lot about you. Okay, like he remembers you. It doesn't matter status, position, whatever. Um, he's very good at understanding and making you feel like you're important, right? So whether you are or you aren't, Trestle for sure will make you feel like it. And I think that was a big part of who he was. Being able to know people, right? To understand what their circumstances are, to understand kind of where they come from. To Trestle was the type of person, he'd come out to visit. He asked you a few questions. There's some random questions. Oh yeah, I have a sick cousin or something or whatever. blah, blah, blah. The next time you see him, maybe 6 months later, he'll be like, you know, whatever happened with that cousin? Is he okay? Like, he'll remember details that you wouldn't expect him to, which I think is something that, one, most coaches don't do or aren't capable of doing, which makes sense, right? Because they're dealing with a lot of different people. So I think that was one of his like superpowers. And, you know, for me, Coach Trestle was a football coach, but his approach was more about building a person. He kind of became, for a lot of players, kind of like a father figure, someone who really wanted your best interest, right? So I think that's one of the things that, you know, makes a lot of players speak highly of Coach Trestle.
You hear that a lot, that Tress was really embraced his players, and it's great to hear that he had that approach. You talked about the staff in Florida. Urban was there at the time. We know he has a favorite quote: "I treat my stars like stars. I treat the shit like shit." A pretty big contrast from Tress's approach. When we were preparing for this interview, I was looking through some of your old tweets, and you asked a great question that I want to get your answer to on the show. Start one, bench one, cut one. You were in Florida when Urban was at Florida. Ryan Day is the new guy in charge. You have a podcast on the Believe Network, Believe in Buckeyes, where you talk about the Buckeyes regularly. And you played for Tress. Can I get a start one, bench one, cut one for these three coaches?
So this is funny because I put this tweet out and nobody really wanted to respond to it. So this is tough. So I obviously played for Trestle, so I got so much bias there, right? I actually lost to Urban Meyer when he was at Florida, right? So there it goes. But he's obviously a legend, and I really like Ryan Day. One of the things I like about Coach Day is, one, his football mind, but two, kind of his transparency. I think, to me, you know, when he goes into the interviews and they ask him questions, to me, he just gives honest answers, right? So that's one thing I kind of like about him. I'm going to kind of sidestep this question by saying, okay, I'm starting Coach Trestle, and I give him the edge because of the life after football effect of being able to be kind of developed in those peak years of college by a coach who cares about the sport but also cares about you as a human, right? Yeah. So Trestle gets to start, but he just edges out Urban Meyer, who, when it comes to on the field football, Urban Meyer gets it done, right? And I'm not going to say I cut Ryan Day. What I'm going to say is similar. If y'all saw the Olympics, right? Jason Tatum didn't get a lot of play, all right? And Coach Kerr said it was a math problem. So in this case, it's a math problem, man. Ryan Day almost there, but doesn't quite make it. But I'm gonna give him a chance to enter, and for someone else to get cut, I'm gonna give him a chance this year if he can, you know, lead this team past that team up north and maybe contend for a national championship. He gets a chance to work his way up there. So that's my answer. That's my answer.
Well, you were not afraid to cut Ryan Day, but the chat was not afraid at all to cut Ryan Day, because that's most of the answers I'm seeing in here.
Yeah, and what I would say is Ryan Day, he's still creating his story. Like, he is in a position where he is learning to be that head coach at a school where we don't give you a lot of time to learn. It's not the place where, you know, so he's and I'm high on the fact that he's learned some of the lessons and he's going to carry that through, especially, and I think we'll see a lot of it this year.
Yeah, the chat was all over Ryan Day. A lot of cut Ryan Days, and I mean, that's understandable to a lot of people, especially Buckeye fans that are millennials and up. I mean, Tress is their go to a lot of people, and then they got to experience the Urban National Championship. Ryan Day seems to be right on the doorstep of a national championship, and this would definitely be a fun one to revisit once Ryan Day starts to add to the hardware. Definitely after the past few years, I'm sure people have a sour taste in their mouth when it comes to Ryan Day. But if he gets it done this year, who knows where these rankings will go, because when it comes to national championships, they'll all be on the same playing field there. We've done a lot of talk about Jim Trestle. I was digging through your old tweets yesterday, and I found another one, and we had to talk about it. Give us our wins back. We've been talking about this for a while. NIL has been approved. The rules have changed. You guys vacated wins over something that would have been legal today. Just your thoughts on this whole situation with NIL being legal now, and then looking at the Michigan scandal and everything that's going on there. How do you guys feel looking back at the way the NCAA treated you guys, and then you see how this Michigan situation is unfolding, how the NIL situation is unfolding? It just seems so outdated and antiquated that we're still talking about this scandal 15 years later when you look back at it and you're like, is this even much of a scandal?
It's not. It's the NCAA is kind of shooting from the hip, right? And they've been doing that for a long time. Just to take everyone back, when this happened, Terrell and the other guys were facing suspension the following year, right? And Terrell was draft eligible, so he decided to, instead of staying, enter the supplemental draft. Both me and Terrell were 4th-round picks to the Raiders that year, and the follow-up to that was the NFL suspended Terrell for the 5 games in the NFL instead to carry that suspension over. Now, Jim Harbaugh, who likely is going to face some type of, well, he's got whatever
1-year suspension.
He's not going to face that in the NFL, right? So it's just random rules that are created, and the punishment never necessarily fits the crime. But this is so minor compared to what we're seeing. I mean, a quarterback today could be a millionaire in college football, and we're talking about guys who are selling their memorabilia and getting tattoos that led to the entire season being vacated. So yeah, I mean, it's just silly. And really, at the end of the day, it really comes down to the amount of hype it gets. If a bunch of people hype up this and say, like, we need to get the wins back, etc., the NCAA will move. If nobody pushes back on it or says anything, then they'll just let it fly under the radar. And that's the way they operate at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we try to bring light to all the time. Me being obviously a big TP fan, seeing him not have these records, not seeing you guys not be acknowledged for the work that you guys did is ridiculous, especially now for something that's legal within the sport. I always think about NIL, and I always love to get former players' perspective on the situation, because I was just a student in college, and I know what an extra $50, an extra $100 changed the look of my weekend when I was in school. I couldn't imagine seeing the money that some of these kids are seeing in the sports now. I just want to get your thoughts, or maybe hear some of the conversations that you've had with former teammates about what you think Columbus would have looked like if you guys had NIL when you were on the team.
It would have looked good. I mean, I drove a Chevy Impala, and I paid for myself, but not with extra benefits or anything. I think that car would have been a lot better. I think it would have been a lot better. No, I mean, it would have kind of looked like it does now. I think you have the opportunity to go find a place where you can kind of be more secluded. I think the focus on football increases a little bit more because you got some money. You can pay for the stuff that you need to. I remember after my freshman year, going into that summer, I didn't understand how, if you weren't in school the whole summer, you weren't getting a scholarship check, right? So I did school the first half of the summer, second half of the summer, didn't have any classes or whatever. And I didn't have any money, right? Like, it was a weird time where I had moved off campus, had to pay security deposit, had to, start paying rent, had to get furniture. And I realized, I'm out of money. I don't have furniture. I have to sleep on the floor for the next few months until school starts. So I wouldn't have experienced that. That's for sure. So, yeah, it would have been a different time. And the other thing, I was a business student, man. I had my jersey sold in stores my senior year. I knew the amount of, I didn't know the exact amount of money, but I knew money was being generated. And I wanted a piece of it. I didn't take a piece of it, but I wanted a piece of it. So I would have made this work for me in a way that could be beneficial, not just in that short period of time, but really for the long term.
And you touched on it right there. A part of the sport that a lot of people prior to NIL really weren't familiar with is the fact that a lot of players live off of the scholarships that they have. A lot of people are dependent on that type of money, and the responsibility that you have around the football program and to the team. It's not like you could just go out there and get a job at Taco Bell for summer money like that, or you have study tables, and it's like you have a full-time job. So the idea that you're not able to earn and then you're expected to make all of these commitments to the university is really unfair. And it's great to see that these players are able to get that type of support. And I'd love to see Buckeyes driving around in Lamborghinis and Mercedes trucks instead of sleeping on the floor over the summer.
Yeah, I'm at Brian Browning in that too, man. We were roommates, man. We ordered a bed, I think from Sears or something. We didn't realize at that time when you order a bed, it's just a frame, right? We're not actually getting the mattress in the box spring. So yeah, it was fun times, man. We had a bed frame with no bed. We slept in the middle of it.
Oh man, definitely the college struggles. Go ahead,
Chimdi, I don't know if you know this, but Ron and Terrell Pryor actually have a pretty close relationship. He won't let it off.
Okay.
But Ron, go ahead and tell him how you know Terrell Pryor.
I grew up about 15 minutes away. We were in the same section in high school. Terrell's a few years older than us, but when we played Terrell his senior year of high school. They played us. It was the National High School Football Game of the year or of the week. Big broadcast, all kinds of camera crews out there to see the game. Our team was talking crap. Terrell was not a fan of that. Usually he came out of the game about halfway through the second to make sure that he didn't get hurt. He made sure to stay in all the way through the third quarter to ensure that we lost that game 77-6. So I've been a Buckeye fan ever since I saw a young guy from Pittsburgh, the number one recruit in the nation, putting on for the city. I mean, you would show up to Jeanette games back in the day, and they'd be playing Wiz Khalifa uncensored versions as this man walked out of the tunnel. I'm like, ain't no one doing it putting on for the city like this, just getting away with anything. You have all the biggest coaches in the country coming to Pittsburgh to see him. It was a crazy time.
Yeah, Terrell was like LeBron James in high school. I remember they had signing day or whatever. I can't remember how it was back then in terms of when you committed and when you signed, but I remember him just like pushing it back.
Mm-hmm. Like, man, he called a press conference on National Signing Day to tell everyone that he wasn't signing on National Signing Day. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting time because Jordan Hall was also his teammate at the time. So not only would they destroy us in football, they'd show up 2 times a year in basketball, and you'd have Jordan Hall throwing alley-oops off the backboard to Terrell Pryor against 2A Pennsylvania schools with guys that can barely touch the net.
Shout out to Jordan, man.
Yeah, shout out to Jordan Hall. Last Ohio State return that we have, or I'm sorry, kick return. It's been a decade. It's been that long since Jordan Hall was here, since the Buckeyes have returned a kick. So shout out to Jordan Hall.
That's crazy.
But I wanted to get you. We talked a little bit about Tattoo Gate. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Michigan scandal. You guys had to vacate wins. You saw Terrell Pryor have a suspension in the league. You saw Jim Trestle, being the honorable man that he is, honoring his suspension despite not having to in the NFL. What are your thoughts about what the Michigan punishment should be for their current situation?
Yeah, so it's hard to come up with a punishment for something, to me, that's very unprecedented. Like, I don't know what you compare it to, because it seems like all the past violations and stuff were stuff outside of football or in recruiting. But now when you have someone who's using breaking the rules to actually use it during games, it's just a different situation. And then like the process just takes so long in general for all of these things. So now you have a completely new coaching staff. You're gonna have a lot of new players when the sanctions hit. And the other thing is they played and they went all the way to the national championship. Right. So now it becomes even more difficult because what do? Do you go back and vacate the wins because they went all the way to the national championship? It would have been almost better for the NCAA had they faltered or lost the Big Ten. If Ohio State would have took care of business, like that would have been a better situation for them. But now, I don't think they would want to. I don't think they would get rid of a national championship because now you delegitimize a championship team. And honestly, Michigan going on that run made money for the Big Ten. It made it. Ohio State is always there. Having another team at that level generates income, generates money, generates attention, and nobody can people are incentivized by the things that benefit them. And the NCAA and the Big Ten were incentivized by teams being able to compete on the national stage. So to go back and now take it back, I just find it hard to believe that they'll do it. So realistically, the punishment looks like recruiting impact moving forward, postseason bans or restrictions moving forward, right? Hurting the next group that didn't really participate in any of this. So it's just a bad situation all around. But they definitely cheated, right? They definitely cheated. That's the way the media has been able to spin it. You realize how many Michigan individuals are high up in media, right? Fox Sports, ESPN, you got Barstool or whatever. So you kind of see it because they were all on they all had the same narrative. It felt like the Democratic National Convention, the way everybody had the same talking points going through last year. So it's interesting.
You talked about the Buckeyes not being able to get it done and not stop them. The Buckeyes are 0-3 versus the team up north in the past 3 years. As a former Buckeye, as someone who has went into that game and been able to get it done, how difficult is it to sit and watch these games when it's completely out of your control and you just have to watch the Buckeyes go out there and try to get it done, and they haven't been able to for the past couple of years?
Yeah, man, that's one of the most painful things. The two most painful things for me is one, losing games because the defense plays bad. That was a few years back when we lost to Oregon in the shoe. That was hard for me to watch. I was at the game. It's one thing the offense is struggling. I just yell at the TV or whatever. But when the defense just isn't playing, it just actually hurts my soul. Because I could see it. I could see the issues before they happen. I could see it while it was happening. The other thing is just watching a loss to Michigan. And it's really because, I didn't grow up Ohio State fan. I grew up an LSU fan. I grew up in Louisiana. My introduction to Ohio State really was Miami versus Ohio State national championship. I had just moved to Florida. Everybody was, riding Miami. I wanted to be different. So that's when I really started paying attention to Ohio State. And really since then, there hasn't been a lot of falters to Michigan. And then I get on campus. And since then, we've beat Michigan. I'm not really familiar with the Cooper years or whatever, where you had a good Ohio State team that still lost to Michigan. So that's tough. That's really, really hard for me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I can only imagine in that 2022 game of the debacles in the secondary and running into each other. Hopefully your TV survived that experience, because that was a rough day in secondary history for Ohio State.
Yeah, that's tough. It's the weird thing is my expectation is so high. Like the idea of losing to Michigan doesn't make sense to me. Right? That's what, I've never wrapped my head around. It's funny because it's not until after the game ends that I truly wrap my head around the fact that Ohio State loss is losing, right? Like during the game, it's like, no, there's no way. Yeah, that was a bad. Okay, that doesn't make sense. But they're gonna figure it out. We're gonna win. So this year, again, I'm back at the same place. It wouldn't make sense. It just wouldn't make sense to us for us to lose to that team. So I don't expect it. And I got so many tweets stored. I got tweets bookmarked. I got so much firepower for after winning. It's 3 years of firepower, man. I got so much stuff in the tuck to go crazy on Michigan fans. So yeah, it's pent up right now. So I can't wait. I really can't wait.
Absolutely. Q and I met about 2.5 years ago. So we met during the slide to Michigan and started this Buckeye media stuff during a downtime to Michigan, and everybody's like, "Oh, you better be outside when they play Michigan again. They better be outside." I was like, "We've been outside for 3 years. We picked the worst time to jump in to this Ohio State media stuff as far as talking shit to Michigan, and now we are out here and we have to stand in the paint. There's no running. Honestly, even if we wanted to stop doing this, we got to go at least until Ohio State beats them again before we stop this media stuff, because they're going to be like Michigan ran them off the block."
Right. Yeah, I'm telling you, I've taken, and Michigan fans have been frying me for a few years now. Like, I'm on Twitter. I'm talking tough, but they have been letting me have it, and all I do is bookmark. When this game this year, after we beat that team up north, the amount of retweets that are going to come, they're going to start blocking me because I'm going to be going at individuals that I don't know, I don't even care about, but I got so much pent up for this game this year, and I'm expecting them to get it done. Like this year, for sure, I'm expecting them to get it done. The team is in a good place. They got the experience, they got the talent, and they got the learning experiences from Ryan Day for the last few years. And I think really this is kind of the turning point. I mean, he's been good in terms of record and everything, but I think this year is kind of the turning point in his career moving forward as a head coach.
No worries. We appreciate you joining us and want to let the people know where they can find you and get more Buckeye talk on a regular basis from Chimdi.
Yeah, so me and Brian Brown, and we do the Believe in Buckeye podcast. It's on YouTube. It's on all the streaming platforms, all the podcast platforms. You can follow me on Twitter. Just type in Chimdi Chekwa. There's not a lot of people with the same name as me. I have a cousin that does have the same name as me, but you'll know it's not him. So
we really appreciate you joining us, and would love to have you back on the pod anytime that you want to make it. So we appreciate you joining us, and a big thank you for coming on the Buckeye Roast this morning.
For sure. Thank you.
No problem. Have a good one.
See ya.
A great start to guest week, Q. Thoughts on that interview, man? I feel like I boxed you out of there a little bit.
I always know when a guest comes on, I can sleepwalk through this because I'm like, dang, all I got to do is pick a question here and there, and I can ride the wave. But I did forget. I forgot to tell him about the picture you had with Terrell Pryor later. Chat, you're gonna have to bully him to get that picture back out on the timeline. Terrell
Honestly, I'll show it on the show tomorrow. Anyone who doesn't know which picture Q is referring to. Oh man, so I was at the gas station at like midnight maybe or something like that, and like I'm getting out of the car and I do a double take and I'm like, I mean, I know bro lives up the road, but like I know that's not Terrell Pryor over there. And I walk into the gas station, I go grab a drink, I get back up to the register, and what do you know? It's Terrell Pryor, and I'm with one of my buddies, and he's looking at me, he's like, "Don't even ask me." I'm like, "I'm gonna have to do it." I'm like, "Bro, hold this phone." It's like I had to ask him for a picture. I'm like, I've been a huge fan. I have to get a picture. And yeah, there's a picture of me and Terrell Pryor in a Sunoco in Pittsburgh at 1 a.m. So I'll get that on the show. I actually have a signed copy of that picture and a pair of signed Browns gloves. So fun story about TP there. But again, a big shout out to Chimdi for joining us. We still have a loaded week of guests for guest weeks. We have Dan and Chad of the Best Damn Podcast in the Land joining us on Wednesday. And then Friday, we have our guy, Pat Cahill of Menace to Sports. We also have a few guests for the season already starting to line up. So hopefully, I've been getting to work. So we're hoping to bring some new guests to the show and shake up the content this season. But Q, is there anything else that you wanted to get to before we get out of here today? A little bit of a shorter episode, but if there's something that, I guess we could take questions in the chat too. If there's any questions that you guys have before we get out of here, we can do some questions. Q, is there anything around the team that you wanted to talk about? I mean, it feels like we are we are a week away from football. Last Saturday was our last Saturday without football. We have week 0 games in Ireland this week, and then it's Akron talk.
Yeah, man. No, I can't wait. No, that's most for what I had. The chat has any questions. But yeah, I was like, it feels good that Justin Fry gets a little bit of a break here. And then also too, I need Pro Football Focus to start gearing up their week by week top 10 player list, so I can pull that out. We can start doing that every morning. But no, man, I'm excited for the season. I'm happy to get past this recruiting. It's almost time. Week 0's coming up. So I'm just happy to get back to college football and, wipe away the tears of last season, because that was rough. Lying. There's always, when you're in the season badly, it's so hard to go through the off season. It's like, somebody else has something to say. I swear, that's why I don't be on Twitter, because every time we post anything Ohio State, it'd be like, oh, BIA best in America. But what'd they do for y'all last season? It's more than a 5-on-5 sport, all right?
Absolutely. Bro, I almost thought today's episode didn't happen. I haven't even talked to you about this on the phone. Yesterday, I'm sitting here at work, and I had a power surge. My power went out for like 10 seconds, bro. Completely fried my modem.
Ooh.
It's like, it's at like 7 o'clock. I finally get off the phone with Verizon. They're like, yeah, your modem's toast. Thankfully, my buddy is a professional hacker, so he just has a box of modems at his house. He's like, he's like, just come grab one. I'm like, oh, I'm sure this thing's secure. He's probably hacking into it from his house. I go home and I set it up. I connect the network. I'm looking for the Wi-Fi. I'm like, bro, it's not showing the Wi-Fi name. He's like, the name for the network is Burns-Win IP.
Oh my goodness. That's
and they say IT people have no personality.
Geez, that's too funny. That reminds me of some college Wi-Fi's that I will not mention here on the public air. But we used to go to a frat house. They used to get pretty crazy.
Let's go to a frat house though to connect to the Wi-Fi.
You might be there for a bit. You got to text, social media, so you needed it. They got a little crazy with the names.
Q over there cutting the DJ off like, what's the Wi-Fi password in here?
Okay, not at night. I myself am no stranger to internet problems, so I empathize with you on that one.
Absolutely, but that's all I really have for today. We went the extra mile to make sure that we were able to bring this episode to you despite technical difficulties. Shout out to my buddy Bob that was able to get me up and running. Q, is there anything else that you have, or do you want to
let me run some promo while we're in here. We got time. I want to appreciate everybody coming through. Like the video, we were letting it flow for a minute, but do not forget podcasts. I know most of y'all got an iPhone out there. Hop on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review. Go ahead, sub to the show. Let us stack up. That really helps us a lot. Ask a question. Do what you got to do there. We really appreciate it. And if you don't have an iPhone, or even if you do and you have Spotify, definitely help us out over there. At least some 5-star review, trying to get those audio numbers up. Do not forget, we are in the community. So definitely, if you're not in the community, ask us. We'll let you in. If you are, go ahead and like and retweet that show. Let us know. Like I said, we got Chad and Dan on here tomorrow. So if you have any questions for them or anything, just pop them into us early or throw them in on podcast or tweet it out, and we'll definitely pull it for that. It should be an action-packed show tomorrow. And if I didn't get any words in a day, you get Dan and Chad up here. I'm gonna definitely have to save my time to get some words in tomorrow. It should be a good time.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's all we have. We got one question up here from our guy, Mike Green. Do you think the older players like Ryan Day? And I feel like it's a mixed bag. A guy like Chimdi, who has a good relationship with inside the Woody, where I was at the fan appreciation practice. Chimdi was there way before the fans were in there. A lot of those guys, I mean, when we spoke with Troy Smith, I know he not as much, but I mean, you see guys like Ted Ginn, Jr., who were just at practice the other day. I feel like it just all depends on their experiences in the Woody after their playing time. I know when Urban first got there, he kind of separated himself from the Trestle area and kind of tried to turn the page on that. But I know Ryan Day does a good job of really connecting with older players. I don't know. I haven't had many players or heard many players say any negative things about Ryan Day for the most part. And you see guys like, Devere Posey was at that player appreciation practice. So you do see a lot of older guys in the building. So I would say it's a mixed bag. It just depends on their experience over the years within the Woody and what coaches they had those experiences with. But for the most part, I think the Buckeyes, they call it a brotherhood for a reason. They do a good job of maintaining that and taking care of former Buckeyes and welcoming them back in to the facility. So I'd say for the most part, they do have good relationships unless something transpired in between their time with the Buckeyes and after.
Yeah. And I think that was important for Ryan Day to get the old school guys back. If you were here, we talked to Garyon Conley. He hadn't really been back to the Woody in a while and really was like, yeah, a lot of us don't really have too much of connection with the new staff. So it's good to see those guys get back in there. And like I said, it was, my idea. So when they do it, they owe me some money of throwing a mentor program and keeping the old players around just for the culture of the team and the focus. So they got to give me some more Arvell restock when they go to that plan. I'll take it in dividends.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a good thing to have these older guys that have lived it and understand what it is to be a Buckeye, and then to carry that on later in life, the doors that it opens, the connections that it makes, and just expanding that Buckeye brotherhood and network and really letting these younger guys see the brotherhood by having the older guys come back and show how welcome they are here in Columbus.
Yeah, Ron, before we I got to ask you, you put the graphic up. Who are you cutting? I think we got out of here. We didn't have to answer, so I got to know. We got from the chat. Who are you cutting?
Cutting Ryan Day. He's the only coach that didn't give me a national championship within the first 5 years of his career here. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to have, Trust is my GOAT. And then Urban, brought me my first natty as an OSU fan. Most of you guys know I didn't become an OSU fan until my teens later in life when I was looking for a college. So my first experience of actually experiencing a national championship as a Buckeye fan was under Urban. So of course Urban is going to get the bench, and then the only person that's brought me public misery on camera is going to get cut.
Oh man. Oh yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely with you. I'm cutting Ryan Day. He still has shit to prove. I don't know who I'm starting though. So I've been watching since 2001. So I did see and funny enough, my dad hated me because he was a big Miami fan back in the day. So we certainly were on different sides for that natty. So I do remember that, but it almost feels so much different when Urban got here. Like the level of excitement that I knew of, like, oh, we've lost these natties, and now that Urban's here, like I've seen him, go win a couple. So I'd almost say I'd probably have to start Urban and then bench Tress and cut Ryan Day, because those were some good years in the early 2010s.
But it's going to get real interesting about this discussion if Ryan Day is able to get a national championship. You have two former Hall of Fame coaches with one national title under their belt at Ohio State. Urban, obviously, the success that he had elsewhere. But when it comes to Buckeye success, Ryan Day inserts himself immediately right into that conversation with one national championship.
Yeah, I think the pressure is high. I think it's time for him to get it done, but we've talked about it for a while. You would take Ryan Day's resume up against anybody. Without that really natty or Urban, you'd probably take Day's. Obviously, this is before the 3 Michigan losses. It was only like 1 at this point, but you would have took Day's resume over that, even with that loss. So, definitely, he's still got stuff to prove. And then, like I said, I think Ryan Day is going down a trajectory, and we'll talk about this. I can't wait to ask Dan and Chad about this tomorrow. Going down a trajectory where I feel like he's just on this offseason really leveling this up, and it's really feeling like a different culture. And Dan's very tied in, so he can give us some input on that. But it just feels the Woody feels different right now. So it's good to talk to former players, especially that's gone to practice and kind of felt it. So definitely, I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited for the season.
Exactly. I'm super excited for the season. I'm super excited about tomorrow. Again, a reminder that we are having Dan and Chad of the Best Damn Podcast in the land. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow for another guest-filled show. Super excited to talk to some different people. I'm tired of talking to Q. It gets annoying.
That's all right. I just won't show up. That'll be easy.
No, don't do that. No, but it's always great to add people to the pod and, diversify our Buckeye conversation. It has been an awesome show. Oh, super thankful to Chimdi to join us today. Make sure you guys check out his podcast, Believe in Buckeyes. So after the show, if you aren't subscribed, if you haven't checked it out, make sure that you go find that podcast. Q, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, man, I want to appreciate everybody. I got to give this man a shout out. It's good to see Punk back because this man is the biggest. I don't know if he's the biggest Ohio State fan, but he's the biggest Buckeye roast fan that we have out there. He's in here every morning from the SEC footprint. So shout out to him.
Shout out to all of our Buckeye does Punk doesn't technically fall into this category because he's secretly a closet Buckeye. But all of our non-Buckeye fans that tune into the show every day, we appreciate you guys as well for sticking it out. We have Tennessee fans that have left comments and said they watch, USC fans that say they watch. So Punk claims to be a Georgia fan, so I guess that kind of counts. And then, of course, all of our amazing Buckeye family that support us every day. A big shout out to all of you guys. We appreciate you guys watching.
So just know where the one dislike came from on the video. No, definitely appreciate y'all. If you want to find me, not hard to find. I'm City Boy Quentin on Twitter. Go ahead, and also too, if you tweet out the show, Doreen does it all the time. See Emily do it. If you have a minute, go ahead and tweet that link out. Let people know where to find us. Let people know where you spend your mornings, and I will give you a shout out on the show. So tag me and Ron in there. Make sure to do that. But yeah, that's on Twitter. Flynette Johnson on Instagram, Minor League Films here on YouTube, where I talk movies. So try and get some subs over there. So if you like movies, come over and talk about them with me. That's all I got, Ron.
Oh, I forgot. We have a surprise guest on Thursday that we haven't announced yet. The chat will be excited to see them. They're big fans of them. So keep an eye out for that surprise guest on Thursday as well. But if you want to find me, you can find me here weekdays at 8 a.m. for the Buckeye Roast here with my guy Q. Saturdays on the Menace to Sports platform for the college football pregame show with Chris Drew, and then post games in the Bleacher Report app. And then, of course, Sundays here at 10 a.m. for the flagship Buckeye BS with me, Q, Cam, and Mike every Sunday at 10 a.m. We appreciate everyone tuning in to this episode of the Buckeye Roast. There's 210 people in here. Before we get out of here, if you haven't liked the video, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that. Find us in Discord, find us on Twitter, all that good stuff. We appreciate you tuning into the show. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for more of Guest Week. Go Bucks and OH.
Ayo, and shout out Mike Green.
Shout out our guy, Mike Green.